Room number 13 wasn't just another student dorm. It was a grave of secrets. When Viela's roommate began seeing a girl under the banyan tree at 2 a.m., everything changed. A decade-old tragedy, a brother's guilt, and a sister's restless spirit were about to resurface. And Viela would learn that some rooms never let go of the dead. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss the next tale hiding in the dark. Your nightmares deserve company. Turn off the lights, listen closely, because sometimes the past isn't buried, it's waiting. Viela was an ordinary university student. His hall of residence room was number 13, situated in the building's darkest, most forgotten corner. A permanent chill hung in the air, accompanied by a profound, heavy silence. His flatmate was Colm, a quiet, studious chap who kept largely to himself. One night, around 2 a.m., Viela awoke abruptly from a deep sleep. He shifted slightly and saw Colm sitting bolt upright in his bed, his back ramrod straight, staring motionlessly out of the window like a statue. "Colm, why are you awake?" Viela asked, his voice unsteady. Colm turned his head slowly, his eyes wide, yet utterly vacant. "Look, that girl, she's there again. On the lawn, just there, under the banyan tree." Viela jerked his head towards the window. It was pitch black. There was nothing, just a solitary street lamp pushing back against the gloom. "There's no one there, mate. Go back to sleep," Viela said, pulling his duvet tighter. Colm didn't respond. He simply turned back to the window and sat there until morning broke. Over the following days, a change came over Colm. He spoke even less. Deep, bruise-like shadows appeared under his eyes, as if something were consuming him from the inside out. It became a ritual, waking at 2 a.m. to sit by the window. Sometimes he would mutter softly to himself, "Viela, do you ever feel as if someone else is living inside you? Someone watching you from the very core of your being?" Viela would ignore him, but a seed of fear had been planted. One night, Colm's bed was empty. Alarmed, he got up. The lavatory door was shut. From within came a strange sound, like someone softly humming a mournful, weeping tune. He knocked. "Colm, are you in there?" Abruptly the sound ceased. The door opened. Colm stood there, his eyes bloodshot, yet his face was unnervingly serene. "That girl, she's in here now," Colm said, the ghost of a smile twitching on his trembling lips. "I invited her in, and she came." He gestured towards his empty bed. The hairs on Viela's neck stood on end. He saw nothing, yet the air felt thick, charged with a presence, as if someone were breathing right beside him. Colm stretched out his hand, as if clasping another's. "She says she doesn't want to be alone any longer." After that, Colm fell completely to pieces. He stopped eating. His body withered like a dying leaf. He held conversations with himself all day long, dialogues that seemed meant for another. Viela tried to get him to see a counselor, but Colm refused. He would only say, "I'm not on my own anymore. She is with me." And then one day, Colm vanished completely. No one knew how he'd left. He'd gone to sleep in his bed, but by morning he was gone. His duvet, however, was indented with such force in the center, as if a great weight had been pressing down on it. Beneath that spot, they found a single item, Colm's mobile. His last recorded video was time-stamped 4:17 a.m. The footage was black, but Colm's voice was clear, clinging, and desperate. "I'm coming. Now we'll be together for always." This was followed by a scream that sounded less human and more like the shattering of glass and soul. The police came, asked their questions, and found nothing. The hall authorities sealed room number 13. But that locked door, even now, sometimes rattles in the dead of night, not randomly, but deliberately, as if someone is trapped within, desperate to get out, or perhaps as if something is trying to get in. A month later, a new term began. Viela's new flatmate, Blake, moved in. Blake was all smiles and positive energy, his voice filling the corridor. He unpacked his things right in the middle of the room, filling the void Colm had left with new life. For Viela, it was a relief, finally someone to pull him from the shadow of that corner. Blake asked one evening, "This room, does it ever feel a bit off to you?" The question came around 11 p.m. as they were both studying. Blake had stilled his pen abruptly, as if struck by a thought. His eyes scanned their surroundings, sinking into a peculiar depth. "Why? What happened?" Viela asked, his pulse quickening. "Nothing really, it's just, last night I woke up. I felt like someone was watching me, standing right by my bed." Viela nodded, drawing a deep breath. He debated telling the truth, sharing the haunting experience he'd endured with Colm. But Blake's familiar, understanding gaze compelled him. He nodded, feeling the burden on his shoulders for the past months begin to lighten. Viela told him everything, from Colm's strange habits to the terrifying truth of his final night. With every word, the air in the room grew denser. Viela described how Colm's eyes had sunken into his skull, how he'd talked to some girl at the window, and that harrowing final scene of Colm staring at some lifeless thing on his empty bed. Blake listened intently, his eyes calmly measuring the room and its growing menace. After a long silence following the story, Blake said, "You know, I had a look in the university archives." Viela's blood ran cold. What sort of new student spends his first day rummaging through archives? Blake opened his rucksack and produced a yellowed file. It contained typed sheets and handwritten notes. 10 years ago, he continued, his voice now flat and detached, a student lived in this hall. Her name was Doja. She lived in this very room, number 13. One day, her A-level exam paper was found, every answer deliberately wrong. The tutors suspected she'd written them herself, but Blake produced another paper, a photocopy of a suicide note. This is what she wrote. "My hard work has become someone else's game. I couldn't have failed. Someone has betrayed me. That person is close to me." She failed. That very evening, she hanged herself from this window. The police put it down to stress, but did anyone ever stop to think who altered her paper? Who was so close to her, ruined her life, and drove her to it? Viela's breath caught in her throat. She had never imagined the events of last year were so deeply intertwined with a decade-old tragedy. Blake's eyes were fixed on her now with a strange intensity. "Don't you think, Viela, that what happened to Colm wasn't an accident? That it was a sort of punishment?" At that moment, the single bulb in their room flickered, and Viela could have sworn he saw for a split second the reflection of a long-haired girl standing behind Blake in the dark window pane. In that very moment, Viela's breath froze. Hearing Blake's answer, every nerve in her mind seemed to short-circuit. She was speechless, staring into Blake's eyes, which now looked completely lifeless, abysmal, and eerily hollow. Blake's smile had morphed into a grimace of pained memory. His lips quivered slightly, but his eyes remained perfectly, terrifyingly still. "Yes, she was my sister, Doja," Blake said, his voice thick with a strange tremor. "I've been searching for her, searching for all the answers. Who was it that changed her paper? Who was so evil they could do that to their own sister?" Blake took an old photograph from his book. Two children, a boy and a girl, impossibly happy, locked in a tight embrace. "Colm was my brother. We were siblings, but when I was young, I became terribly ill. The doctors said I wouldn't make it. My parents begged Doja to stay, to look after me, so I wouldn't be alone. But Doja, she wanted to read medicine. She wanted to be a doctor. She refused and left for university. Colm couldn't bear it. He thought if Doja failed, then she'd have to come back to me." The horrific, twisted logic of it all dawned on Viella. A poisonous form of love, corrupted by desperation. Colm changed her paper, made every answer wrong so she would fail. But he never dreamed Doja would be so fragile, that she would take such a final step. Blake closed his eyes as if a poisoned memory were stinging him. "When I found out, a part of me died inside. Colm, too. He spent his whole life consumed by guilt. He came here, to this very room where Doja took her last breath to atone for what he'd done." Blake opened his eyes, and they were now identical to Colm's in his final days, wide with terror, hollowed out. "And now," Blake's voice dropped to a terrifying, resonant depth, "Doja, my sister, she wants her final justice." Hearing this, I ran out of the room and the building. I was under so much stress that I left that hall for good. I don't know what became of Blake after that, but I never went back. I couldn't handle any more of that stress. It was the worst part of my life. Even now, 4 years later, I still think about that hall and everything that happened. I get this overwhelming feeling, this sensation of it all, as if it's still with me.